There is an additional way to combine two functions. It's called the composite function, or the composition of two functions. Simply stated, the composition of two functions is just substituting one function inside or into another. Let's look at an example of this. We'll start with f of x equals 6x and g of x equals x plus 3. My first example is to find f of g of x. The second function listed is always substituted inside of the first function. So what I will do is I will take the x plus 3 and I will substitute that in place of the x. When I work that out, instead of 6x, that would be 6 parentheses x plus 3. Notice the x plus 3 came from the g function. Then I would just work that out. 6 times x is 6x, 6 times 3 is 18. And that would be my final answer for part A. Now part B lists this in a different way. It had the g first. That means that the f of x goes inside of the g function. Well, let me look at that another way. The f of x is the 6x. It gets substituted inside the g. So instead of x plus 3, I now have 6x plus 3. And there's nothing to work out mathematically, so 6x plus 3 is the answer. Now part C will ask me to use the information given. It says f of g, that's how you would read that FO. The little O is the composition symbol. F of g of 2. Now realize part 1, or part A, was where we had worked out f of g. And the part A answer was 6x plus 18. We simply now substitute the 2 into that answer. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 plus 18 is 30. The answer for part C would simply be 30. And last but not least, part D, g of f of 2. G of f of 2 would use part B, because part B is where we calculated the GOF, or g of f. Part B answer was 6x plus 3, so we plug in a 2 because that's the given value. 6 times 2 is 12, and 12 plus 3 is equal to 15, and that is the answer. Now let's try this with another example. Now remember, the second one listed is substituted into the first one. So I will take the 4x squared minus 4 and substitute that in for x. So instead of 2x minus 3, I substitute in the second function in place of the x. Now I'll distribute. 2 times 4 is 8x squared. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. I can add my like terms in the back, and I have 8x squared minus 11. That would be my first answer. Now let's work part B. The second letter f is substituted into the first function g. So all of the terms from f are substituted into the x of the g function. So g of f of x is no longer 4x squared minus 4, but it would be 4 parentheses 2x minus 3 squared minus 4. Notice the 2x minus 3 is substituted in place of the original x. Now this really means that I have 2x minus 3 times itself. I have that twice. And I would have to do the FOIL method. First, outer, inner, last on that. Well, 2 times 2 would be 4x squared. 2 times negative 3, that's negative 6x. Negative 3 times 2, that's another negative 6x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. all of that is simply by using the FOIL method. So I have 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. But that's not all I had. I also had a 4 in front, and I also had a subtracted 4 in the back. So I really have 16x squared minus 48x plus 36 minus 4. And we can simplify 36 minus 4 is 32. So that would be the answer for part B. It was quite a bit more going in that direction. Now part C says to take the FOG, which is part A answer, and substitute in -1. Well, the part A answer was 8x squared minus 11. So I substitute in a -1, a -1, and that would be 8 times +1, which is 8 minus 11, and that would be -3. Then part D will use the same thing, except it will take -1 and substitute into the part B answer.